I've always loved Halloween. When I was 10, it was the most important day of the year for me. The weeks leading up to it were all about planning my costume and, most importantly, decorating the house. My dad was really into it, too. He would buy all the cool stuff: fake cobwebs, giant spiders, skeletons that you could hang from trees, and even a fog machine. That year, my two best friends, James and Curls, were helping us out. James was 14, so he was the cool older kid who could reach the high branches. And Curls was 12, just a bit older than me. We were having a great time in the front yard trying to make our house look like the scariest one on the block. My dad was setting up a creepy scarecrow by the porch, and I was spreading cobwebs over the bushes with corals. James was on a small ladder hanging a plastic ghost from a big oak tree near the sidewalk. That's when I first saw him. A man I'd never seen before was walking down the street, and he stopped right in front of our house. He wasn't walking a dog or jogging. He just stopped and watched us. He was average in every way, maybe in his late 30s, wearing a plain jacket and jeans. The only odd thing was his smile. It was big, but it didn't look friendly. He looked right at me and said, "Wow, you guys are doing a great job, getting ready for the big night." I was a friendly kid, so I smiled back. "Yeah, we're trying to be the spookiest house." "I bet you'll get a lot of candy," he said, his eyes scanning all our decorations. "You planning on going trick-or-treating around here? What's your route?" The question felt a little weird, but I didn't think much of it. Before I could answer, my dad walked over from the porch. He put a hand on my shoulder and stood between me and the man. I could feel his hand tighten just a little. "Can I help you?" my dad asked. His voice was calm but firm. The man's smile faltered for a second, just admiring the... "Make sure you get lots of full-size candy bars, kid. Time to go inside, son," my dad said to me, not taking his eyes off the man. I did as he said and started walking toward the front door. As I glanced back, I saw the man's face change. The fake smile was completely gone. He had a cold, almost angry look in his eyes. He stared at my dad for a second, then turned and walked away down the street without another word. A couple of nights later, I was woken up by a loud thud from the front yard. It sounded like something heavy falling over. My bedroom was on the second floor, and my window looked right out onto the street in our yard. I was scared, but my curiosity got the better of me. I crept out of bed and peeked through the blinds. The streetlights cast long, creepy shadows across everything, and standing right in the middle of our yard was the same man. He was just standing there, partially hidden by the big oak tree. Up. It was now lying on its side on the grass. He wasn't doing anything, just staring at our house. He was looking right up at the windows, and I felt like he was looking directly at mine. I jumped back and my heart started pounding. I ran out of my room and downstairs to the living room where my dad was watching TV. I said, "Dad, that man is in our yard." He immediately got up and went to the front door. He opened it and stepped outside. I watched from the doorway as he looked around the entire yard. After a minute, he came back in and locked the door behind him. "There's no one out there," he said, though he looked worried. "The scarecrow fell over, that's all. Maybe the wind knocked it down." But I knew it wasn't the wind. The next day was October 31st, Halloween. I was still a little shaken, but the excitement of trick-or-treating took over. To our costumes. I was a ninja, James was a werewolf, and Curls was a vampire. As soon as it started to get dark, we grabbed our candy bags and headed out. We stayed in our neighborhood for a while, but we had this idea that the houses farther away gave out better candy, so we just kept walking block after block until I barely recognized the streets. Our bags were getting heavy with candy, and we were feeling proud of ourselves. We were walking up to a dark house with a single pumpkin on the porch when we heard a voice call out from the shadows across the street. "Hey kids, over here I've got the good stuff." We all turned. Standing in the driveway of a house with no lights on was the man. He was holding a big bowl and he took a step toward us. That same fake wide smile on his face. "Come on, don't be shy," he said, his voice trying to sound friendly. Corrals and I took a step forward because who says no to more candy? but James grabbed both our arms. "No," he said, his voice shaking a little. "Don't. We need to go." James was older and he could tell something was seriously wrong. The man saw us hesitating and his smile vanished again. He dropped the bowl, it was empty, and started walking toward us much faster this time. "Run!" James yelled. We didn't need to be told twice. We turned and ran as fast as we could. I could hear his footsteps pounding on the pavement behind us, getting closer. We were all screaming. Carols, who was always quick, darted between two houses and disappeared into a dark backyard. James was faster than I and was pulling ahead. I risked a look back. The man was focused only on me. He wasn't even looking for the others. His face was filled with a terrifying anger. I was getting tired and my ninja costume felt heavy. He was right behind me. I could hear him breathing. His hand reached out and grabbed the back of my costume. I thought it was over. "Get away from my son." It was my dad's voice. He came running out from a side street, his face pale with fear and rage. The man let go of me instantly, so suddenly that I fell to the ground. He looked at my dad, then back at me, and without a word, he turned and sprinted away into the darkness. My dad ran to me and pulled me into a hug. A few moments later, James came back and Curls peeked out from behind a fence. We were all crying. On the walk back home, my dad held my hand so tight it almost hurt. He explained that he'd gotten worried when we didn't come back by the time he'd told us to. He had called James's house, but he wasn't there either. Panicked, he got in the car to look for us. He'd stopped to ask one of our neighbors if they had seen us, and they thankfully told him they'd seen 3 kids in our costumes heading toward that specific part of town. If they hadn't, I don't know what would have happened. We never saw that man again, but I've never forgotten his face. Last Halloween was supposed to be fun, but it turned into something I'll never forget. My name is Mark, and I'm 17. I live in a quiet suburb outside of Chicago in a neighborhood where everyone knows each other. That night, our neighbor, Mr. Taylor, was having a small get-together. He's an old guy, retired, and he invited a few people over for candy and games. I went because my parents were okay with it, and I didn't have big plans yet. That's where I met Jake. He said he was 19 and a guest of Mr. Taylor, some distant relative or something. He seemed cool right away. Tall, with short brown hair, wearing a plain hoodie and jeans. We started talking about video games. He was into Call of Duty, same as me. We played a quick round on Mr. Taylor's old console, laughing about bad shots and glitches. He told me he lived a few towns over, but visited Mr. Taylor sometimes. We exchanged numbers, and he seemed like the kind of guy who'd be a good friend. My mom had been bugging me about getting a pumpkin for our porch. Dad was stuck at the office with some deadline. He works in accounting, always buried in spreadsheets, so she told me to handle it. I mentioned it to Jake and he grinned. "Hey, I know a great spot. There's this farm out on Country Road 47 about 20 minutes away. They have huge pumpkins, cheap too. Want to go?" I figured why not? It was still early evening around 6 p.m., and Halloween wasn't over yet. I had my mom's old Ford truck, so we hopped in and drove off. The road got darker as we left the suburbs. No streetlights out there, just fields and trees. Fog started rolling in thick like in those old movies, making it hard to see more than 10 feet ahead. My headlights barely cut through it. We chatted about school, me still in high school, him saying he was taking a gap year before college. Finally, we pulled up to the farm. It was this run-down place with a wooden sign that said Miller's Pumpkin Patch. But there were no lights on, no cars, no people, just rows of pumpkins in the field, half hidden by the fog. "Where is everyone?" I asked, feeling a bit uneasy. Jake shrugged, probably closing up. "Wait here. I'll check around back." He got out and disappeared into the mist. I sat in the car, scrolling on my phone, but the signal was weak. Minutes dragged on. 5, then 10. I started to worry. What if something happened to him? Then he came back, but not alone. There was this guy with him, maybe in his late 40s, wearing overalls and a flannel shirt like a typical farmer. His face was normal, clean-shaven, brown eyes, but something felt off. His smile was too wide, like he was forcing it. "Hey there, kid," he said to me. "Jake here says you need a pumpkin. Come on in. I've got the best ones inside the barn." Inside the barn was this old wooden building behind the field, doors creaking in the wind. Jake nodded. "Yeah, Mark, let's go." He says the big ones are stored there, but the farmer started asking weird questions right away. You live around here? What's your family's name? Got any siblings? What does your dad do? It wasn't casual chat. It felt like he was probing. And why inside? The pumpkins were right there in the field. I glanced at Jake, but he just stood there, hands in his pockets, watching me. The fog made everything blurry, and I swear I heard a door slam somewhere in the distance, like from the farmhouse next to the barn. Were there more people? My gut twisted. They were both staring at me now, waiting. Come on, it's just inside, the farmer said again, his voice a little sharper. No way. I stayed by the car. Actually, my mom's texting me. She's waiting and I need to get back quickly. Can we just grab one from out here? I pulled out my phone like I was checking a message, even though there was no signal. Jake looked at the farmer, and for a second their eyes met in a way that made my skin crawl, like they were sharing a secret. Sure, kid. Take your pick. We grabbed a big pumpkin from the edge of the field. I paid him cash, and we drove off. The whole ride back, Jake was quiet, not like before. I dropped him off at Mr. Paler's and went home carving the pumpkin with Mom. I tried to shake it off, but that farm stuck in my mind. Later that night, we threw a small party at my house. Just me and a few old school friends, about 8 of us total. Pizza, sodas, horror movies on Netflix. I invited Jake too, since he seemed fun earlier. He showed up around 8 p.m., blending in. Okay, we played some board games, told dumb ghost stories. Everyone was laughing. Then Jake's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and slipped outside without saying much. Be right back, he muttered. 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I opened it, thinking it was a late trick-or-treater. Black jacket and what looked like a realistic human face mask, like those silicone ones you see online. It was creepy, the eyes blank, the mouth frozen in a grin. This was a private party, and no costumes were invited except maybe a hat or something. Who are you? I asked, blocking his way. He didn't answer, just stood there. My friends noticed, and a couple came over, Ben and Leah. Dude, this is invite only. You know someone here? Still nothing. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a gun, a real one, black and heavy looking like a Glock or something. He pointed it right at us. Everyone, wallets, phones, and jewelry. Now put it in this bag. He tossed a duffel on the floor. Panic hit. My heart pounded so hard I thought it burst. We all froze, then started handing over stuff. My iPhone, Leah's necklace, Ben's watch. The guy moved quickly, waving the gun. I glanced at Jake. He was in the corner tossing his wallet into the bag like everyone else, but he wasn't scared. No wide eyes, no shaking. He looked calm, like he'd seen this before. The robber even took Jake's stuff, but it felt staged. The guy grabbed the bag and backed out the door, vanishing into the night. We locked up, called 911. Police came fast, 2 officers flashing lights waking the neighborhood. We told them everything. They checked our outdoor CCTV camera, the one Dad installed last year for security. On the footage, clear as day. When Jake went outside for his call, he met the same guy, the one in the mask, but without it on yet. They talked for a minute, heads close. Then the guy waited while Jake came back inside. It was planned. Police arrested Jake right there. He didn't resist much. At the station, they questioned him. Turns out Jake confessed the farmer at the pumpkin patch was his uncle, some guy named Carl with a record for theft. They'd been running scams, targeting kids like me, scoping out houses through friends like Jake. That farm trip, it was to get info on my family, see if we had valuable. The weird questions were part of it. They wanted me inside the farmhouse to maybe grab my keys or phone, but I dodged that. The party robbery was the main plan. Jake fed them details. Police raided the farm. It wasn't even a real pumpkin patch anymore, just a front. They found our stuff hidden in the barn, plus more from other robberies. Carl had the gun, unregistered, loaded. They arrested him too. We got everything back, but it didn't erase the fear. Now I double-check doors, avoid new friends. Mr. Taylor, he had no idea Jake was in trouble. He felt awful. That Halloween taught me sometimes the scariest things aren't ghosts. They're people you think you know. If I'd gone inside that farmhouse, who knows what would have happened. I still get chills thinking about it. When I was a kid around 11 years old, my family would drive out to visit my grandparents every holiday season. They lived in this quiet little town in rural Ohio. talks about the weird stuff. We didn't live there. We were about 2 hours away in the city. But Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter all meant packing up the car and heading out. My grandparents' house was on a dead-end street. Nothing fancy, just a row of old wooden homes with big yards. My aunt and uncle lived 2 houses down from them. They had my little cousin, who was just a toddler at the time. To get between the 2 houses, you'd walk along this cracked sidewalk past one house in the middle. That was where she lived, the creepy lady. I don't even know her real name. We just called her the lady, or sometimes the chain woman behind her back. She was huge, over 6 feet tall, and built like a linebacker. She always wore these heavy logging chains around her neck, like the kind lumberjacks used to drag trees. They'd clink and rattle when she moved. Old glasses that looked like they were from the 1950s, and big work boots caked in mud. Her hair was wild, gray, and tangled like she never brushed it. The only times I ever saw her outside were when she was in her backyard garden or scrubbing the outside of her house. Yeah, scrubbing the actual building. She'd get a bucket of soapy water, a stiff brush, and just go at the siding like it was covered in invisible filth. She did this all the time, even in the rain sometimes. It was weird. And if she spotted us kids playing nearby, she'd start yelling, "You little brats! The devil's coming for you. He's gonna drag you down." Stuff like that. Her voice was deep and growly, like she'd smoked a pack a day for decades. It scared the crap out of me and my cousins. The adults always told us to leave her alone. She's just old and lonely. My mom would say, "Don't bother her and she won't bother you." But we knew better. Whenever we had to go from my grandparents to my aunt's, maybe to borrow sugar or play with the cousin, we'd run the whole way. Her house had these big windows facing the street, and you'd see her silhouette there just watching. Curtains half drawn, her face pressed close to the glass. We never went alone, always in pairs or groups. One time my older cousin swore she muttered something about burying the sinners as we passed by. We laughed it off later, but it stuck with me. That Halloween, I was about 11. We were all at my grandparents' for a family gathering. Me and my 2 cousins, Jake, who was 13, and Sarah, 9, and a couple of neighborhood kids. We dressed up. I was a ghost in a sheet with holes cut out. Nothing special. After dinner, we headed out to trick or treat. The street was dark. No street lights, just porch lights here and there. As we walked, Jake got this grin on his face. "Hey, dare you guys to hit the chain lady's house?" We all froze. Nobody ever went there. Her porch light wasn't even on, but Jake kept pushing. Come on, don't be chickens. We're in a group. What's she gonna do?" I didn't want to look like a wimp, especially in front of Jake. My heart was pounding, but I nodded. We crept up her walkway, leaves crunching under our shoes. The house smelled musty like wet dirt. Her garden beds in the back were raised high, piled with fresh soil that she must have just added. One of us, I think Sarah, reached up and rang the doorbell. Nothing at first. Then bang. Loud noises from inside like doors slamming shut. Heavy thuds. We almost bolted right then. The door creaked open slowly. There she was, towering over us, chains dangling, dress stained with what looked like mud. In her hands, oh man, she was holding a severed head. It was dripping something dark, and the eyes were glassy, the mouth hanging open. The skin looked real, pale and veiny. We screamed, all of us, and ran like hell back to my grandparents'. I tripped on the sidewalk, scraped my knee, but didn't. When we burst in, panting and crying, the adults laughed it off. "It's just a Halloween prop," my dad said. "You kids shouldn't have bothered her. Serves you right for getting scared." They made us calm down with candy, but I couldn't shake it. That head didn't look fake. About a month later, it was right after Thanksgiving. We were back home in the city when the phone rang late at night. I was in bed, but I heard my parents talking in hushed voices. Mom was crying. The next morning, they sat me down. "Something happened at your aunt's," Dad said. "The lady next door attacked her." It turned out my aunt was bringing in groceries from the car, holding my little cousin in one arm. It was dusk, getting dark. She didn't hear anything until it was too late. The lady snuck up behind her with one of those rope saws, you know, the kind with handles on both ends, like for cutting branches. She looped it over my aunt's head and yanked it tight around her neck, starting to saw back and looking at her own front door while screaming. The rope bit into her skin, blood everywhere. My uncle heard the commotion from inside, grabbed the fire poker from the fireplace, and came running out. He swung it hard, hitting the lady in the arms and head until she let go and collapsed. The police showed up quickly. Ambulance, too. My aunt was rushed to the hospital. She had a deep gash across her neck, needed stitches and surgery to fix the damage. She survived, thank God. But she's got this long, jagged scar now, like a pink line from ear to ear. She covers it with scarves sometimes. But that wasn't the end. The cops arrested the lady and searched her house. What they found was insane. She'd been digging tunnels under her property. Not just shallow ones, deep, reinforced with wood beams like old mining shafts. They snaked out from it and came up under my aunt's house, my grandparents', and even the neighbor on the other side. That's why she was always in her garden. She'd haul the dirt up in buckets at night and dump it into those raised beds, hiding it in plain sight. The gardens were overflowing with soil, but nobody thought twice. Down in the tunnels, they found her shrine. It was this dirt room with candles melted into the walls, religious symbols scratched everywhere, crosses upside down, weird drawings of devils and chains, and around it severed heads, real ones. 3 of them preserved somehow like in jars or wrapped in plastic. The police said they were from missing people, drifters or hitchhikers she'd picked up over the years. She'd been living like this for decades, quietly losing her mind. No family, no friends, just her chains and her secrets. Turns out that Halloween head wasn't a prop. It was one of them. Fresh, maybe. The cops matched it to a guy who'd gone missing a week before. We could have been next if we'd stuck around. After that, the house got torn down. Tunnels filled in. My aunt and uncle moved away. They couldn't stand being there. Grandparents stayed, but they put up fences. I don't visit as much anymore, but sometimes at night I think about her watching from those windows, and I wonder how many other creepy neighbors are out there hiding tunnels and worse. Twice about who lives next door.